Well, hello. Today we have a 2015 Nissan Rogue. It's got the inline four-cylinder 2.5, and the customer complains that it occasionally runs rough at a stoplight or an intersection, stumbles, and occasionally stalls on them. Check engine light is currently on when I drove it in the shop. It didn't act up when I drove it in, but mind you, it's cold. So we're going to do a network scan and see what codes it's generating. So this is a new vehicle record that we've never scanned before. It's already auto ID'd the vehicle, and we're going to do a network scan. I predict it's going to have something to do with variable cam timing. It's a little slow. Got a clean battery charger connected to it so the battery doesn't go flat. That's why it's sitting at 13.2 volts down here, 13.3. Why is it not communicating with anything? That's strange. Oh, maybe the key shut off because it's one of those smart ignitions. That's exactly what happened. I got distracted. I had the ignition on in the ready mode and it automatically turned itself off. So that's why it wasn't communicating. Cylinder misfire on number 4, P0300. CAN communication. That one bothers me. P0011, intake valve timing control. Let's hope it's an electrical fault. Some network codes, four-wheel drive codes, abnormal vacuum sensor source. Well, I'm mostly concerned about the P0011. The random misfire and the cylinder 4 misfire is probably due to the cam timing not being correct. Is it done yet? Still going. 5 controllers, systems analyzed. 8. We'll pick up when it gets to the end. Well, that was painfully slow. 11 controllers. Again, this P0011 I think is the priority. Communication error between the engine and transmission. These CAN bus codes are sometimes generated by data from the PCM. Ignition relay on. Engine signal 1. No data from a wheel speed or TPMS. Timing over advanced or system performance. Well, let's see what's common to cause this. So unlike most manufacturers, this system appears to use 3 different solenoids. Top, front, timing chain side. The factory service shows solenoid left to right on the top of the timing cover. Intake valve timing intermediate lock control solenoid is the valve closest to the firewall of the 3. Then the intake valve timing control solenoid is in the middle, and the exhaust valve timing control solenoid closest to the front of the vehicle radiator size. But check the wire colors. So it seems to be somewhat common for the solenoids to fail. Let's have a look where they are on this engine. So there you can see one of the 3 solenoids, the one closest to the firewall, and directly below it another solenoid connector, and then in the front here a 3rd solenoid connector. It doesn't appear to be any way you can get at it without removing this upper motor mount here. Wow. Well, first and foremost, we're going to check the oil, make sure the oil's clean and full. So I had a look at the oil level. The customer said it was recently changed. You can see that it's a little bit low according to the dipstick. He said it was overfilled and he actually took some out. So I'm not sure. Anyways, to get at that solenoid, it's not pretty. I'll likely have to support the engine, but I'm not sure. So there doesn't appear to be a way to get this mount out of here with these AC pipes in the way. But I'm hoping if I move it forward enough, sneak it forward enough, that I can reach in there and get at this middle solenoid here. There's not a lot of room. Now the other problem is the engine's supported now by a jack, and I need to lift it up to get underneath. So maybe if I can put a block of wood underneath here temporarily, I can raise it on a hoist. It's not easily accessible, that's for sure. So here's a better picture of the front of this engine. This is towards the firewall, so that item number 3 is the intake valve timing intermediate lock control solenoid. Number 4 is the intake valve timing control solenoid, and number 5 is the exhaust valve. Now there's very little room to get in there. Looking at the trouble code and the diagnostic flow chart for this, it specifies what are possibilities here. Possible causes: crankshaft position sensor, camshaft position sensor, intake valve control solenoid valve, accumulation of debris on the signal pickup portion of the camshaft, timing chain installation or foreign matter caught in the oil groove for the intake valve timing control. Well, basically the troubleshooting chart basically says clear the code, run the vehicle, see if the code resets. If it does, start taking things apart and look for lack of oil to this timing control solenoid, change the solenoid. I think given the location, we're going to see what the availability of a solenoid is and the cost, because we could spend a tremendous amount of time here. I think we just change the solenoid and see what happens. If it's not $1 million, which I don't want to jinx it. So I've temporarily put it back together again partially so that I can drive it outside. The solenoids are available from the dealer. All 3 solenoids, believe it or not, are the same part number, which for a change is logical. If you have 3 solenoids that basically do the same thing, why have 3 different parts? So they actually have 3 in stock at the dealership. They're not cheap. They're $175 retail. That's Canadian, of course. And I've got one coming, so I'm just going to temporarily put this thing outside. I think we're going to pull that solenoid out, the middle one, and inspect it for debris on the screen if it's got a screen or sticking, and replace it and see how it performs afterwards, because everything else is theoretically more invasive. An internal issue, timing chain guides. This doesn't rattle when we start it, so that's a good sign. Anyways, that's where we're at. So I did a network code clear and I started and ran the engine. You can hear the way it's running. It was running smooth for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then it started to stumble. Looking at engine data. So right now running, it shows the intake timing at 38 degrees and the exhaust timing at 0. Now the check engine light is not on, but it may have set a code. So I'm going to save this data first of all. So I'm going to see if there's any pending codes. Multiple cylinder misfire and intake valve timing control. So we're going to go ahead with replacement of that solenoid when it gets here. So there's the new part from Nissan. Not cheap. Retails at $175 here in Thunder Bay. $176.90 actually, to be specific. So we're going to have a look from underneath and see if it's more accessible from underneath. So I see the new solenoid doesn't have any kind of screen on it. Now let's see where this thing lives. This is just like the Friendly Giant. Look up, way up. Now you can see one solenoid. That's the exhaust one at the front. The one directly above it is the one we're going after, which is way in here. Right up in there behind that wiring harness. Wow. Can't get your hands up there. At least I don't think so. Certainly not going to do it when it's hot, that's for sure. So it's had a chance to cool off. I'm going to try and release the connector from the top. So with the front motor mount out of the way, I put a block of wood underneath the front of the engine on the cross member. Raised it up slightly. I was able to release the 2 connectors. I figured if I undo the bottom connector, I can move the harness out of the way. It'll be better shot to looking at that solenoid. You certainly can't get at the fastener from here. unless we raise the engine. So let's try from the bottom. So with that exhaust harness out of the way and the other harness unplugged, you can actually see the solenoid. It's sort of behind that ABS connector. And 3-foot 1/4-inch drive extension and 10 mil socket, and you can take the bolt out. Now I'm going to let it down and see if I can grab that with a pair of angled needle nose pliers and work it out. So I was able to get the solenoid out, and then it fell on the floor, but as you can see, it appears to be stuck. There's the new one in my fingers, and you can see the valve is open at the top of this land, and this one is closed. So it seems like it's stuck. I'm going to try and actuate it with a pick or something. Even on this land here, you can see the new one is open and this one is closed. So the solenoid is stuck. So that's a good sign. So I was able to move it down a little bit with a screwdriver, but it's really stiff. I don't want to try manipulating the new one, so I'm just going to put some silicone grease on this O-ring seal, and we'll put it in and put it partially back together so we can start it up. It's back together and running. Just started it. Now I see the intake valve timing is at 9 degrees. I think it was at 30 or something, 30 something last time. But we'll let it run for a few minutes and see if it generates any fault codes. Take it for a road test. So just got back from a road test and vehicle's running fine. Here's the original recording at idle where the intake timing was pegged at 38, 39 degrees. And here's the after. At an idle, it should be around 1 degree. So the only time it moves is when you're on the throttle and accelerating. So you can see when I was driving it, it was actually changing as it should because of the load and speed of the engine changing. But car runs good, no more fault codes. I don't know why that solenoid's stuck, but the fact that the dealer had 3 in stock kind of suggests it's a common failure item. Anyways, let's hope it stays fixed. Thanks for watching.